Volodymyr Zelenskyy journeyed all the way back to the USA to visit his sugar mamas and daddies in D.C. and shake down the American taxpayer out of our hard-earned dollars once again. But we want our money back, Volodymyr. The show starts now. So there are three divas fighting for the spotlight right now, and they are as follows: Taylor Swift, Kim Kardashian, and Volodymyr Zelenskyy. But unlike Kim K and T Swift, Voldemort over there has absolutely nothing to offer us, and his little spotlight self-aggrandizing appearances don't come with shapewear or dance numbers. Just him demanding billions from Americans who can barely afford Christmas and are already funding millions of the world's people thanks to Joe and our wide-open southern border. Apparently, the $113 billion is not enough for Voldemort, also apparently not enough for him to afford a suit, as he is groveling for more, and his little elves, McConnell, Schumer, Haley, and Graham, are more than happy to oblige at our expense. And let's not forget the most generous elf of all, Papa Brandon.
Thank you. Before the press, hey, whoa, hush up a second, okay? I got one more thing to say. I've just signed another $200 million drawdown for the Department of Defense for Ukraine, and that'll be coming quickly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, how generous. Well, this is Z-Boy's third visit to Congress since the war began, and he's even more desperate this time around, given the Israel-Hamas war has eaten up some of his me time. The only thing our leaders should be engaging with him about is where the hell our billions have gone. He is the Ukrainian Grinch, and he has already sucked us dry enough. Voldemort is a crooked jerky jockey, and he drives a crooked horse, and he should leave. Joining me now with his take on Voldemort and more is former Deputy Director of National Intelligence, Kash Patel. So, Kash, I got a lot to talk to you about, a lot of Hunter stuff, a lot of big guy stuff, a lot of Pfizer stuff. But I want to talk first about what I mentioned in my opening, and that's Zelenskyy coming back to the U.S. in his ugly tracksuit, sitting in front of a fireplace, how cozy, with our president demanding more money from the American taxpayer. Do you think it's going to work this time, or are we a little more focused, and rightfully so, on Israel and Hamas right now?
Well, Tommy, it's great to be with you. And Zelenskyy definitely didn't get the wear green for Christmas memo that you and I obviously received. Look, it's kind of offensive that this guy comes to us during our holiday season after we've given him $1.2 billion and expects us to roll out the red carpet again. Good for Speaker Mike Johnson putting down the law and saying, no, we are not giving you that $200+ million more dollars you want without significant money contributed to our border. And that's being held up by the United States Senate. So it's going to be a fight. But what disgusted me the most, probably more so than the government meetings he had with Johnson and Biden and company, was the picture he had with the heads of the defense industrial complex, who are all out in force to make sure that their bought and paid for industry in Washington, D.C. and the swamp continues, because they're the ones that biggest benefit from Zelensky's payout. It's disgusting to see that kind of behavior from the people who are supposed to be supporting our defense industry.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't expect anything less from those individuals. But that also brings me to my next point about this. Why are certain Republicans and certain Democrats, that seems to be a bipartisan thing with the swamp, they are so adamant about Ukraine? I mean, they talk more passionately, Nikki Haley being one of them just in the debate last week, more passionately about funding Ukraine than they do about Israel, than of course they do about our own southern border. What is it? Is this just the defense contracting money, the special interest? What is it that makes these people so rabid about getting money for Ukraine? I mean, this drumbeat to me, it's almost unexplainable unless it's a money thing.
It's money. The defense industrial complex is worse than all the lobbyist groups on K Street combined. They have owned the Democrats and Republicans for decades. They know every year we are going to pass an NDAA north of $750 billion, a good third to 50% of which goes to the defense industrial complex. It's no surprise when you see Republicans or Democrats or folks like Nikki Haley, who put up a Boeing plant in South Carolina. By the way, great for the residents of South Carolina, but they're going to keep coming back because these defense industrial companies like Boeing and Northrop Grumman and Lockheed and all these other folks contribute so much money to campaigns, to super PACs, and also are the ones employing people back home in districts. And what they need to continue that effort is government funding, and they're never going to stop.
Yeah. So I want to get your take on Vivek just quickly, because he seems to be, others are, I mean, Ron DeSantis did as well, but he seems to be the one that's calling out this defense industrial complex the most passionately, calling out Nikki Haley the most passionately about her ties to those things that you just mentioned and about her being a neocon that's bought and paid for by this industry. What do you make of him? Do you believe what he's saying? Do you believe he's genuine? And when you watch him take these people to task, what's your initial reaction?
Well, look, I'll be the first one to say, as a former chief of staff for the Department of Defense, the defense industrial complex does a whole lot of good. But there's a whole lot of rabid corruption that they cause in Washington, D.C. And good for anyone that calls it out. I've known Vivek a long time. I think he is genuine when he goes on the offensive against these individuals. And I think the reason he's become such a big target is because he is effectively describing one of the biggest secrets of corruption in the swamp to so many in the American electorate, especially on the Republican side. This has been covered up by too many politicians in Washington, D.C., and I think his effective ability to articulate these complicated issues to the American people are exposing a vein that D.C. would have hoped just stayed under the skin.
Yeah, I like the way he calls out both sides for that, and I'm no fan of Nikki Haley, so I particularly love it when he calls her out. But I want to turn to the other big news of the day, and that's, of course, Hunter Biden. Now, he does not want to comply with precedent. He wants to have public testimony. He's very mad that Republicans are using and abusing his addiction issues and all the money that he spent on sex clubs and prostitutes instead of paying his taxes. Let's play a clip of Hunter from earlier today, and then I want to get your reaction to this performance of a lifetime.
I'm here today to answer at a public hearing any legitimate questions Chairman Comer and the House Oversight Committee may have for me. I'm here today to make sure that the House Committee's illegitimate investigations of my family do not proceed on distortions, manipulated evidence, and lies.
Illegitimate. And then you had Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez say that we don't have a single witness to corroborate the corruption scandal with the Biden family. She's right. We don't have a single one. I think at this point there are about 5, maybe more. But what do you make of this and him saying, I want to testify publicly, I'm not doing it behind closed doors? The American people might see this and think, oh, great, he wants to face the public, but maybe there's more under the surface there that you can tell us.
Well, only Hollywood could create such a character. And since Hollywood is bankrolling Hunter Biden, of course, this is what you get. Let me remind the American people, the civilians in this country do not dictate to Congress how their subpoenas and their subpoena powers work. May I remind you of the Unselect Committee in January 6th, and this guy being the first one subpoenaed. I didn't say if I don't appear publicly, I'm not coming at all. There's a negotiation process, but at the end of the day, the rule of law is the rule of law. And what Hunter Biden is trying to do is destroy the rule of law because he has been caught and charged with even more felonious conduct out in California. And he's saying he wants to only testify in the public sphere. Well, Congress, buckle up. And the Republicans over there better enforce this subpoena. Hunter Biden just broke the law. The Democrats prosecuted every Republican that violated a congressional subpoena. It's now up to our Republican majority to do the same. I get that Hunter Biden's the target, but it's not on him. Our Republican majority better step it up.
So do you think there's a fine line here that House Republicans have to walk with the American people? They don't want to seem like they're doing to Joe and Hunter what was done to Donald Trump with his 2 impeachments. Do you think that they have to walk a line here or maybe describe to the American public maybe a little more why this is important to them? Because I fear that the layman out there might not understand the purpose of this, and they might actually fall for these crocodile tears of Hunter feeling like he's being attacked because of his addiction to porn and crack. I mean, I'm wondering how this is going to play.
Look, it's always a political dance, especially when it comes to election cycles in a presidential year. But what the Republicans must do is simply put out the information that the FBI and DOJ have suppressed for 5+ years. Don't characterize it for us. Don't tell us what it says. Just put it out. Congressional constitutional oversight and subpoena power allows you to get all the documentation, all the banking records that show payments from the Ukraine and CCP to Hunter and Joe Biden and company, etc., and let the American public adjudicate that decision at the polls. We know this DOJ and FBI is a two-tier system of justice. We're going to give Hunter Biden largely a pass and have done so for too long. The Congress's job is to allow Americans to be educated with the documents and information. That's why they got to enforce those subpoenas. Hunter Biden just committed another crime by violating congressional subpoenas, and they better act.
So, Kash, I feel like we've already had smoking guns here when it comes to this bribery, corruption, family business dealing scheme. I feel like there's been one smoking gun after the other. But what do House Republicans need to get to? What piece would just prove this thing and bust this thing wide open so that there could actually be an impeachment of Joe Biden, or there could actually be like indisputable proof? I believe there already is. But what else would they need to show Congress and the American people to seal this thing up?
Well, I think we've started that. And with Joe Biden's DOJ charging Hunter in the Southern District of California in Los Angeles federally with crimes he should have been charged with years ago, we are now seeing it. They can't say this is Donald Trump's prosecution of Hunter Biden. This is Merrick Garland and Chris Wray, who have owned this operation for years, have now finally brought these charges. But they brought them because you got to give Congress credit. They brought them because Congress exposed the banking documents you talked about, the whistleblowers at the IRS, the shutdown illegally of the Hunter Biden prosecution and investigations. All of these things have compounded over time, and I think we're just starting to see it. Now, of course, it's no surprise that Joe Biden is not mentioned in the new indictment of Hunter Biden. That is a crafty DOJ being a two-tier system of justice. But we got to keep pushing the envelope because you can't dodge a federal indictment out at the end of the day if you're Hunter Biden. What's he going to say? It was my dad's fault?
Yeah. Well, you know, I've said before, I think if the heat kicks up enough on Hunter, I wouldn't put it past him to sing like a canary on Old Pop. I mean, I think that would be, to me, more surprising things have happened. I want to turn now to something I know you're an expert on and very passionate about. So Speaker Johnson withdraws both FISA bills. This is regarding Section 702. A lot of Americans hear section this, that. They don't know what it means. They don't know why they should care. Tell us why this is important and what you'd like to see happen with this.
Yeah, look, as a former national security prosecutor and intel guy, FISA, foreign intelligence, is an apparatus that allows us to go out and manhunt against terrorists and people who want to literally blow us up. The problem is you have government gangsters like Chris Wray, who takes a piece of FISA 702. It's just a foreign intelligence collection method that's supposed to be used for foreign intelligence, and he directs it inward on a political basis. This isn't Kash Patel saying so. The Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court caught Chris Wray unlawfully looking at 274,000 Americans domestically, 19,000 of which were tied to a congressional campaign for the United States House of Representatives, 24,000 of which were groups in relation to events surrounding January 6th. So I get the outrage and I get the requirement for a major reform. But where we've left with is that the American public and many in Congress are so ticked off at these abuses, this unconstitutional surveillance of Americans, that we are now going to give them, the FBI, an actual win and allow them to continue this illegality because Congress can't come to an agreement on how to redefine the measures in the FISA warrant surveillance program. We laid it out for them since Russiagate, and these guys always wait till the last minute, and unfortunately, Americans are the ones that will suffer. And Chris Wray will continue to violate Americans' domestic surveillance civil rights because of politics.
It's odd to me that Americans are not more fired up about this and their privacy, but unfortunately, I think we've entered a culture and a time period where people are willing to give away all of their data, their information. They do it every day on TikTok. Unfortunately, they do it every day on a lot of the social media platforms we operate on. So I think it's up to us to explain why those privacy concerns are so important. The last thing I want to talk to you about is President Donald Trump, former President Trump, and his immunity claims. How do you think this is going to shake out? And do you think it's going to work out in favor or against the former president? And how is it going to impact his campaigning abilities?
Well, this is a massive legal issue, first time in U.S. history. Look, every other president has been afforded presidential executive privilege except Donald Trump. Joe Biden went to Jack Smith and said, I am rescinding President Trump's presidential privilege for the first time in U.S. history. Why Jack Smith went to the Supreme Court, to me, is very telling as a federal prosecutor. That means he is relying to make his case against Donald Trump by breaking constitutional law so he can get behind the wall of privilege and use information to make his case. Now, the Supreme Court has decided recently to take up this issue. How long they'll take to adjudicate it and whether they will actually rule on the issue of the day, we'll see. But if they should uphold presidential privilege, which is what the law requires, then I believe Jack Smith's case will have all been but gutted against President Trump, because this is this epicenter of his legality in terms of what Jack Smith has brought, putting aside the fact that these cases should never have been brought. But the slippery slope is this. If Donald Trump can have his presidential privilege rescinded, so can Bush, so can Obama, so can the next guy or gal for the next million years coming. And do we really want to have that when presidents need that to make their national command authority decisions? I don't think it's the right way to go.
What do you make of this argument of double jeopardy, that Donald Trump's already been impeached over this 2020 election situation, and going after him for it again would, in essence, be double jeopardy? Do you think that there's anything to that in those claims?
Legally, it's two separate branches of government. Impeachment is the United States legislative branch, and the Article 3 courts of law, where Donald Trump has been charged, deal with double jeopardy. So I understand that there is an issue of double jeopardy in the sense that we already looked at him once for it, the U.S. government. Why are we looking at him again? But I think there's, and I'm not the expert on the case law on this, but you'd have to look at a constitutional scholar and say, has there been a Supreme Court decision which says if a president's been impeached, can he be prosecuted for those crimes? I don't think there has. So the issue may remain open.
So 4 indictments on the table so far. Kash, give me your best estimation. If you think Donald Trump's going to get out of all 4, do you think he's going to get out of 3 of the 4, 1 of the 4, 2 of the 4? What do you think the chances are that we're looking at the top candidate for the GOP in 2024 being convicted at least once in all of these cases?
Well, he should get out of all 4, but what should happen under the law is not what is going to happen because of a 2-tier system of justice. We have seen not just Jack Smith, but Judge Chutkan in the federal case do what they want to do politically, which is kneecap Donald Trump. And we've also seen the folks in Georgia and elsewhere see their cases slip away from them because the public is seeing them for the political hijacking of the court system that is going on. So now they're saying, well, we don't really care about the trial conviction. We just want Donald Trump in court for 75 days starting in March. We want him off the campaign trail. They have campaigned to convict Donald Trump, and now they're putting on a legal offensive effort to keep him off the campaign trail because he is exploding in the national polls and running away with it in places like Michigan and Minnesota and Wisconsin, places that would never have played normally for a Democratic candidate. So they're scared, they're terrified, and this lawfare isn't going to stop.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to stop either. You mentioned that he is doing very well in national polling, even against Joe Biden, even in swing states. But then when you look at the polling, if he does face a conviction on one of these 4 cases, then the American people, it drops to about 50% who are willing and 50% who are unwilling to vote for somebody that's been convicted of at least one of these things. So that's my concern here, is while it's helping President Trump, it also might hurt President Trump, help him in the primary, hurt him in a general. That's my biggest concern here. So I don't know what we're looking at come January, but I feel like it's going to be a big mess.
If you could figure out this crystal ball, you should go to every state's lottery and play it. Nobody has any idea how this is going to shake out, not even my hometown of Las Vegas. But you're right. Are these cases going to get appealed? If he does result in a conviction, how long is the appeal going to take? Is the Supreme Court going to come in? Who's going to weigh in? Who's going to be the final arbiter? Are they actually going to put President Trump in a jail cell while he's campaigning for the presidency of the United States? I mean, we are talking about historic stuff, and no one knows how it's going to go.
Uncharted waters. And meanwhile, our former president, I believe, is selling pieces of the suit that he wore in the mugshot. I mean, you got to give it to him. It's genius. But I'm wondering, Kash, I know that you obviously know the president, worked for the president. Are you going to get a piece of that suit possibly for Christmas or the holiday season? What are your chances?
You know what? President Trump's genius with the American people is his ability to just have a straight conversation with them. He takes the most infamous mugshot in U.S. history and raises more money than any political candidate has done in a 24-hour cycle. And now he's doing playing cards. And what I think he's doing is, obviously, he needs the money in his campaign coffers because they're coming after him with such illegal lawfare. And the response to me tells me the American public agrees with him and wants to give him and will continue to give him that money. And if that's the course of action that stays for the next couple of months, it doesn't matter who the Democrats run. By the way, I think Joe Biden's going to come in and pardon Hunter Biden, and that will be his exit ramp and enter Gavin Newsom. But to me, it doesn't matter who comes in as long as the genius of Donald Trump keeps showing on the campaign trail and raising money the way he's raising it. It's unbelievable.
He definitely knows how to turn lemons into lemonade, one NFT and piece of clothing at a time. Kash, as always, thank you for taking the time, and we'll talk to you in the new year. Plenty to talk about, I'm sure.
Thank you. Merry Christmas and happy holidays.
Merry Christmas. Thanks so much. All right, folks, speaking of that, the Outkick store is live and just in time for the holiday season. So gift a hat or even a T-shirt or for those fearless patriots in your life. And for a limited time, you'll receive buy one, get one 50% off at checkout. All you got to do is visit shop.outkick.com. All right, breaking news. Some women are full of crap and they set out to ruin the lives of young men for fame, money, or both. And it happened to Trevor Bauer. It happened to Matt Araiza. But will justice ever be done? Well, it's time for final thoughts. So a few months ago, I interviewed former Buffalo Bills punter Matt Araiza, who was falsely accused by a 17-year-old girl of gang rape at a college party in 2021. Now, despite the fact that prosecutors in the case declined to press charges and Matt was never charged, and despite the fact that these were just allegations, the Bills cut him from the team just days later. His dreams of playing in the NFL dashed based on allegations with no evidence. Because in this era of cancel culture and believe all women, an accusation is enough to ruin someone, their life, and their future.
She looked me in the eyes, told me she was 18. We had a brief encounter. She was in control and capable the whole time, could have left, could have gone back to her friends at any moment. We eventually said bye to each other. I wasn't at the party much longer, ended up leaving, went home. Growing up my whole life, wanted to be a pro athlete. You know, the thought is if I'm good enough, I'll be able to have that career and play at that level. But that wasn't the case. I was cut because of these allegations. And look, I hold nothing against the Buffalo Bills. I wish things were handled differently, but they did treat me with respect, which I appreciate. It's just the climate of how things are now. Accusations bring so much hate to anyone who decides to stand by the accuser that they were kind of forced to cut me from the team.
But the plot thickens because just this week, his accuser dropped her lawsuit. See, despite the fact that prosecutors and the school both agreed the relations between the two were consensual, Matt has still been fighting her in court for the last 16 months. But now that it's over, what's left for Matt Araiza? He's lost valuable time. He's been cut from the team. His name has been smeared and his reputation tainted. And all while he wants to return to the NFL, asked Trevor Bauer, it's not that easy. And what repercussions will this girl face? We don't even know her name. Now, Matt says he still plans to sue her lawyer for defamation, and I hope he does, but that's not going to fix any of this. And this precedent of canceling people before the facts have a chance to surface, that's not going to change either. And why would it? Because accusers who levy these BS claims face no real consequences. They're able to go along on their merry way. It's open season on straight men in this country, and in the game of he said, she said, it seems the he part of the equation is guilty until proven innocent. And even then, after a career, reputation, and life have been dragged through the mud, the innocent part hardly matters. Now, this should be a powerful lesson, but sadly, it'll probably just be chalked up to an oopsie if the sports media even acknowledges it at all. And women out looking for fame and money will keep doing this kind of thing. And for many, it'll pay off in the most twisted way possible. So hide your sons and hide your daughters because this culture will eat them alive. Those are my final thoughts from Nashville. God bless and take care.